So there you were then, back in 2023, doing Jules' Hootenanny, and you're on Got Me a Party, Paradise, and the next day you're all over social media being portrayed as this very, very cool dude, and people are like, who's this guy was fantastic, who is he, why don't let's hear more, let's see more of him. How did you feel coming off of that, waking up to find yourself a social media sensation?
So I went up, I did Jules, I stayed the night in that hotel, and then I came back home. And I was a prime carer for my wife for 2 years. So all that went on outside of that, Andy, the guy I did an interview with, a Leeds fan, I might add, he told me about the social media thing, and that was it. But it never touched me at all. It's good to know. And the thing about the duos, I'll just touch on this, in the Radio Times or whatever it was, it quotes Andy Fairweather Low, lead singer with Amen Corner.
Yeah.
I'll never break the chain. I'm happy. It's there and I like it. But 24 years of touring and playing guitar, and I'm still Andy Fairweather Low, the guy in Amen Corner. But I'm not bitter.
I tell you, it's funny you should say that, because I saw another quote just on a similar subject where you're saying, I appeared on Country File and people were saying, I didn't know you were still alive.
And I got more contact with people through doing that. I did Country File and Coast and Country, two of them. And the feedback was unbelievable. Oh, my goodness gracious me. Never been. No, I did get feedback from that, and that was it. Oh, saw you on Country File. Really? I'm walking in a field down in Monmouth or something. Oh, I saw you in Country File. It'll do.
So it's been a busy 18 months. Flang Dang came out, got great reviews. I love the way, by the way, you got the title for that album. Sat there watching a couple of guys in a blues documentary. Yes. Talking about hoochie coochie and flang dang.
I don't want to know hoochie coochie flang dang. And the moment I'm watching this documentary, and I'm wondering what to do and whether I'm going to do another album, and it just leapt out, and I wrote it down. I went, that's it. And that was the seed that started me off doing the album. It was that moment that I went, got it, flang dang, that's me.
Now, before we come up to date with this excellent new album, which is out next week, The Invisible Bluesman, I just wanted to look back at some of the considerable life achievements over the last 6 decades. I mean, it is incredible. And as we're in February, almost, it's 61 years ago, isn't it, that it all kicked off when your friend at school suggested a night out at Sophia Gardens in Cardiff. Now, I've seen a few things. First of all, were you 15 or 16? And was it the bill with Byrne Elliott, the Fenmen, and Jet Harris? Or was it the All-Stars 64 Robert Stigwood with the Rolling Stones? Which was it you saw first?
It was the Mike Sound and Billy Davis, Byrne Elliott and the Fenmen, the Leroys, Jet Harris. Unbelievable, Jet Harris. He was that image has stayed with me to this day. I can close my eyes. He walks on in his mohair suit. He's got blonde hair at this particular time. Lovely quiff. He's got a fag in his mouth. He spits it out, steps on it, puts it out, and goes bong dong 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 dong. And we're off into Diamonds. The Stones were on that bill. They can't remember whether they ended the first half or started the second, but I do remember that they started with Talking About You. I love their version of Berry songs. And Bill Wyman, Coffee Bookman, Nice Table and all of that. He has the set list from that night in Sophia Gardens. And what did the Stones start off with? Talking About You.
It's amazing. It is really amazing. I mean, I was also interested in how you actually managed to sneak out the house age 15. Where'd you tell your parents you were going?
Well, they were never that late, though. Football most probably. I'm going to football practice. It was up until that moment. Football was every waking moment. That's all I ever wanted to do. I wanted to be a goalkeeper. Luckily, I never followed that particular avenue because I was never tall enough. That's for sure. And when I did play in a celebrity all-star team with the George Best All-Star,
I was
the goalkeeper, and certainly in one of the games it was 11-0. There you go. I wasn't very good, obviously.
But after that night, everything ended, really, didn't it, for you? The revision, the schoolwork, the everything. There was only one thing on your mind to get involved in the music business. But you did have to overcome a bit of tragedy, didn't you, right at the start? Because your parents were looking around for a guitar for you. And the guy who took all the money for the Christmas club ran off with all the money. So you didn't get the guitar.
Yeah, it was that 1 year might have made a difference. That one other year, previous year, it was a woman, and she ran off with the money. I got a small snooker table. I mean, and I do mean a small miniature snooker table. So that was it. And then eventually, I did get a guitar. I ended up working in Barrett's of Manchester.
Well. This was another very, very interesting thing. So you're at Barrett's of Manchester, the music shop, and the guy that interviews you for the job is Dave Edmunds, the Dave Edmunds.
Yeah, no, Dave was working in the shop, and I'd mix off school. I'd spend a lot of time in that shop, watching people come in, Chris Sanford and the Coronets, Wayne Fontana, Mindbender, whoever was coming into town. And eventually Dave went off, and he had a word with Ray Grand, who was the manager. And Ray said to me, "Do you want a job?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And that was it. And there I was, into the candy store. Fender Jazzma. Actually, my first guitar that I bought on HP, that my father signed for, was a Hofner Verithin. But I did start borrowing 330s, Gibsons, and Jazzmasters. And, it was a fabulous time.
I've got to ask you, did you ever meet, in these days, Chris Slade? Because his story up to this point is very, very similar to yours. Leaves school, gets a job in a music store in Cardiff. He heard that Tom Jones' band was looking for a drummer, and one of them just happened to walk in the store, and he just said, "Well, I'm free. And this is come along to an audio," and that was it. So did you ever bump into Chris?
No, I think Chris worked in the opposition. Gamblings. The other store, there was Barrett's and there was Gamblings. Both established stores in Cardiff. So no, we didn't bump into each other. But that's a real good move too that he made.
Yeah, very. So that period then, 65, 71. I mean, it's hard to digest everything that you did. I mean, the bands were up and running, the Taft Beats, the Firebrands, the Sect Maniacs, before Amen Corner even kick in. And you're seeing so many of these great artists of the time. After the Stones, it was Booker T, wasn't it? Otis Redding, Sam and Dave, Zoot Money and Georgie Fame performing Midnight Hour down in Cardiff, and then Clapton with John Mayall's Blues Breakers at the Flamenco Club. I mean, what a time to be, first of all, alive and kicking in the music industry. It must have been a fabulous time.
It was so exciting. The wheel had obviously turned, but it hadn't turned that much. So a 12-bar blues was like rocket science. Eric Clapton was off the scale. Sam and Dave with Lee Dorsey in the Capitol on a separate bill, and then the Otis Redding, the Stax tour, saw that at a top rank in a ballroom in Cardiff, and then at Finsbury Park. And I'd seen Tom join Otis Redding the year before at the Colston Hall in Bristol with a big band that was on Ready, Steady, Go. It wasn't just exciting, it was off the scale. Soup Money and the Big Roll Band would come, Fame would come, Herbie Goins and the Nighttimers, Chris Farlow and the Thunderbirds with Albert Lee on the guitar. Now, Albert, even then, maybe at 65, he was on top of his game. His solos on Lipstick Traces, that album that Chris Farlow did at that time. And there's a song called Stormy Monday Blues by a guy called Little Joe Cook, which happened to be Chris Farlow. And it's one of the first fabulous blues solos by a white guy. I thought, I lived with that record for so long. And I eventually got to spend a lot of time with Albert in the Rhythm Kings, because I was in the Rhythm Kings for about 23 years. And I used to tell him about that solo, and I also told him that Eric wasn't particularly fond of it. He thought it was a bit too jazzy.
Love it. And then you make the big move, don't you? Because the agency with you was, look, there's all of this work, but you got to be moving into London. And so there's like 7 of you piling up to the Madison Hotel in Sussex Gardens, living in a basement, and you're gigging 2 and 3 gigs a night.
It was so exciting. There were so many gigs and not enough bands to play. There's one kind of itinerary for June or July for Amen Corner. There was 1 day off. And in that period, we're playing Wednesday night is our residency at the Speakeasy, which starts at 12 o'clock. Tuesday night was Blazes. Fridays was Tiles. That was an early evening gig, but the other ones were late night clubs. And we were playing them. And you had the Bag of Nails as well. Hatchets, Sibillas. I saw Ike and Tina in Hatchets in a small club. Saw the Ike and Tina Turner Review. I mean, I can't believe how fantastic that was. Great musicians. And we, as a pop band, we could play Midnight Hour. We could play dun 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 dun. Oh, wait, we couldn't play anything else. You couldn't play a solo on it, but you could play the song. That was the joy of music then, through Jimmy Reed, Chuck Berry. They gave you the key. They gave all of us the key to be able to stand up and play with enthusiasm.
I'm trying to actually relate that to kids or music fans today, saying, we used to go and do a session at start at 12:30 at night, 1 o'clock in the morning. There isn't anywhere that does any of that anymore, because you'd never be given planning permission by the council to allow live music after 11:30 at night. So they talk about the demise of things like that. I mean, part of it is our own doing.
Clubs like that would start we'd have half-hour spots where Laurie would say, right, lads, give us half an hour. Keeping in mind our dressing room is the cloakroom, which is the width of your arms out. That's it, with the clothes in. We used to stand there and we do our first half an hour, and then we go in the cloakroom and we wait while they're all out there jollying. Fabulous club, the Speakeasy too, great food. And then he'd say, right, lads, another half hour, that's about 2 o'clock. And if there's still people in there at 3 o'clock, he'd go, right, lads, give us another 20 minutes or something. And it was only until it emptied that you were allowed to get back to the Madison, go to bed, and if you didn't get up for breakfast, you would not eat until the next gig. It's as simple as that.
67. You're 19 years of age. I mean, and you obviously don't realise the significance, I suppose, at the time, but you're touring with Jimi Hendrix. What was it like to experience hearing him in a live environment for the first time? What do you remember?
I'm still shocked by it. Up until then was Eric Clapton, Peter Green, Steve Cropper, big fan of Steve Cropper, and Hank Marvin. I'm a big fan of Hank Marvin. And then this guy comes along, and he is the first brick in the wall. No one had ever heard anything like it. I remember at the sound check at the Albert Hall, which was our first big tour, first straight from Cardiff, to being on a bill with the Floyd, the Move, the Nice, Heir Apparent, and Amen Corner. We had 15 or 20 minutes. That was it. But on the sound check, I'm watching this. The Wind Cries Mary. He did, Spanish Castle Magic was another one that he did. He was phenomenal. At the Albert Hall, it was only one show, but every other show we did, 19 or 20 of them, were two shows a night. Unbelievable, that many people on the bill. The Outer Limits would play one number. And then we played, it was before Bend Me, Shake Me, so we weren't the pop group then. We did have Gin House out, and we were a soul group, basically, playing soul numbers. And Jimmy went, his girlfriend, Kathy Atchin, when asked about that tour, and Jimmy, and what he thought. What did Jimmy think of the bands that were on that tour? The Move, etc., the Floyd. And he didn't really pay attention, but he did think that Amen Corner were all right.
He offered a bit of advice, didn't he? Come up and tell you?
Right. Because of this club we played, the Speakeasy, which was a late night club frequented by, a lot of musicians, certainly McCartney, Roger McGuinn, Hendrix, and he was down one night and he wanted to play. He would get up with most bands, but we were playing, and he wanted to play I Can't Turn You Loose. We're playing soul numbers. So he borrowed Clive's bass, flipped it upside down, and off we went with I Can't Turn You Loose. maybe a month went by again. He was down there again and asked if he could play the guitar. And again, I've been around now so long, I keep telling my stories over and over. But yeah, he picked the guitar up and I decided, even then, that I would play the bass. So Dennis is on drums, I'm playing bass, and Jimmy starts with this style of guitar that I haven't got a clue what's going on. Thinking, what key is he in? Well, I know what key he's in now. It's obvious. I mean, and I started to move around. I thought, well, if I move around, I know it's some note that's in this thing. What's going on? And I thought I was in the groove, and maybe I was in the groove, but I wasn't in the key. And he did come up and tell me, you're in the wrong key. And I did. I kind of looked at him and went, I haven't got a clue what key you're in. He was a lovely man, by the way. He was so mild-mannered, gracious is what I'd say about him and his company. I eventually ended up, I was in New York, 1969, and got a phone call to say, Jimmy's in the studios. It's recut in stone free. And would I go down and do some backing vocals on that, which I did.
With Roger Chapman.
With Roger Chapman. What a combination. I love Roger too. I've met him since. In fact, I worked with him. With Bill Wyman, I worked with him. Yeah, what an odd combination. And thinking, what are we doing there? You know, I walked into the studio not knowing, and it's Roger, and I'm thinking, what are you doing here? And he must have been thinking, well, what are you doing here? So off we went, stone free. There's only one version of stone free, and it wasn't the recut version, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Do you know, it's funny you say you're on stage and you're thinking, well, if I wander around, I'm bound to find a right key. I was talking a while back to Roger Earl from Foghat, who had an audition. This is before Mitch Mitchell. He had an audition with Jimi Hendrix's band. He said, I just got in there. So I'm sitting down. He said, I'm listening to this thing thinking, well, I don't even know what's going on. I haven't got a clue, you know. But this was also the era, wasn't it? You're having all of this success of the management contracts that made millionaires out of the management but left the artist broke. You were in the same situation. Ron King and Don Arden had split. Ron sells you on the Don sells you on. You're making money from gigs, but you made nothing from all of those hits. I mean, it's almost criminal, really.
Yeah, but had we been sharper on the business side of it, and this is the truth, they'd have just got rid of us and found somebody else to, you know, apply their efforts to make, because we were successful because they wanted us to be successful. B-side of Gin House was given to Radio London for publishing. So the more Radio London played it, they were making money for themselves. I mean, it was little tricks like that, which really worked because Radio London did make Gin House #1 pirate radio station. That was exciting too. You know, I mean, your old transistor going to a gig and all of a sudden, boom, man, we're on the radio. We had a residency in Great Yarmouth, used to play the Aquarium Theatre every Sunday for 10 Sundays, Billy Fury, top of the bill. So if we were in Scotland, we had to get down to Great Yarmouth just to open the show, because he'd go, tonight, ladies and gentlemen, Dennis and John would go, brrr, so-and-so, tomorrow, brrr, Nashville team, brrr, and top of the bill, Billy Fury, brrr, and then we'd be off for about 3 numbers, and that was it. Exciting.
And the only way you could get out of that deal was to basically buy yourself out, and you ended up being in debt to get out of the contract.
Yeah, we didn't actually, we got out of the contract by breaking the band up. We were with Andrew Oldham. He was going into liquidation, not that he told us, and he formed Immediate Inc. in New York, coincidentally, and then put himself down as the biggest creditor, being that the money he paid for us off to Don Arden was his own money. And if we'd stayed, if we hadn't broken up, we'd have been signed off to EMI, which were the credit, we bought, you know, whatever was there. Yeah. And I went, no, I'm done with this. This was meant to be something I really wanted to do, and it ended up being something I didn't want to do. And I thought, the only way out of this, break up. So we did. We ended up with about 10, maybe between 10 and 15 grand in debt. But managed
Which is huge money, by the way. Then.
Well, yeah, but it was our landlord was very grateful when we did get Mr. Hartog. We got money. We didn't know him, 10 grand, but we got money off a deal for RCA. and that paid off the debt. And we moved into Elstree. We were living in Hogarth, a road out in Harrow on the Hill, and we found this place in Elstree, a Norwegian barn in 48 acres in the grounds of the Edgwarebury Country Club, a place where Sophia Loren spent her honeymoon, I might add. This place was phenomenal. And we got it for £35 a week.
Wow.
And because what are you going to do with big places like that? You're going to have an old folks home, or what are you going to do with it? Send it out all as flats? Well, you couldn't do with that place. Stanley Kubrick was one of our neighbours. You know,
fabulous.
Yeah, no, it's lovely.
Image, that this was also the era where rock stars had cars.
Oh, dear.
They loved a car. Now, you loved a car, didn't you? The Shelby Cobra, the Cerise Marcos, the Jensen Interceptor. I know you were reunited with that Marcos a couple of years ago at the Classic Car Show in Birmingham. But the Marcos, I still don't know how people did it, but I know John Lennon did it in his Rolls. You fitted a record player in the glove box, and you had a television in the footwell.
I had a Sony television in the footwell. Keeping in mind, to drive a Marcos, you have to drive flat out, legs out. You're not sitting on a seat, you're flat out. And my wife, who was my girlfriend then, she'd have to sit with her knees tucked right up because the television was in the other footwell. All the switches in the door, had the record player, had a cassette player, and a little bit of a cooler stuck behind. I don't know if we ever used the cooler. And it was Cerise, as you say. Man, I couldn't drive a Cerise car. No, I couldn't get in there. Mind you, Elvis had a pink Cadillac. So it's in there. It's in the performer gene. That's what it is.
I love that.
Shelby Cobra. Oh man, what a car! 7 litres. I think it did about. If you put your foot down, it's about 8 miles to a gallon. That belonged to Mike Jeffries, who was Jimi Hendrix manager.
Yeah.
He were being managed by a guy called Terry the Pill at the time, and Terry the Pill lived in a flat down sort of Bayswater way, and in the garage underneath. One day, we kind of knock on the door. I go, bloody hell, what's that? Oh yeah, Mike died in a plane crash, but his car was there, and the Pill said to me, "Do you want to buy it?" I said, "Yeah." So I bought it. So that was it. Yeah, man, what a beast! And it was round about the time of Bullet, the movie.
Yes.
Now, Steve McQueen didn't drive a Shelby Cobra, but it was a Mustang and type, and I was living the dream.
You drove the band's Transit. You didn't have a license at the time, but I love the bit about you when you went back home. Your mother wouldn't lend you the keys to the Hillman Imp until you became legal. Yep,
no, it's true. I really shouldn't talk about it too much. No, I did not. And when I went home, because we'd hit rock bottom, I had to sell the cars. I sold my amps, guitars, a piano that I had, a Fender Rhodes, and I was staying with my mother, and I needed transport. And she said, "Yeah, well, you can have the Hillman Imp, but you've got to sit your test." And I did. I did a test in them. I got lessons from a guy that had taught my mother to drive, because I had to learn to drive without my hand on the gear stick, and so I went a fag in the other hand. I tell you what, the day I passed my test, there have been some exciting moments in my life, like the birth of our son and all of that. That was up there. I was floating when he and while I'm doing the test as well, this is absolutely true. I'm driving along, and all of a sudden a dog runs out in front. I hit the brake, and we don't hit the dog. And obviously the guy was impressed, and I'm thinking, is that part of the... is that dog waiting? So I did. I passed my test, and I did have the Hillman Imp. And in fact, I've got... I don't know if you can see that, but...
Oh, yeah.
I bought this. I'd have had... If I could have that now, I'd have that car in the front room. I loved it.
Is the dream car, is it still the Aston Martin Vantage?
Oh, yeah, no, don't. The thing about my dream car, as you say, the Aston Martin, you're going to have another car. That's not your car. Where am I going to put the amp?
Yeah.
Well, we put the guitar in the passenger seat, but and obviously it's not. If you think about, I want, then you can't afford it. You get one of those, you just get them because you got enough money. You don't even think about the practicalities of owning a vehicle like that because you've got another one and maybe even another two.
Now, the 70s, the work and the stories of Eric Clapton, Roger Waters, George Harrison, of course, The Who, all documented. But elsewhere on your exhaustive career CV, we have some really interesting artists as well. Bonnie Raitt, Stevie Nicks, Emmylou Harris, Jackson Browne in there as well, Jeff Beck, and another one that did stand out, Lonnie Donegan.
Yeah. Now, a big Lonnie Donegan fan. My father was Scottish, and till the day he died, he retained, even being in Cardiff since about 58, he was the thickest Scottish accent as the day he arrived from Forfar. And he would play Moira Anderson, Kenneth McKellar, Song of the Clyde, and Jimmy Shan. That was basically it until he bought Lonnie Donegan. So that came into the house on the Pine Nixer label, putting on the style. My Old Man's a Dustman, and My Old Man was a Dustman. So it was a big hit in our house. So it stayed with me all through that time, and I'm working with Van Morrison, and Van has Lonnie for a guest when we're going to play Wembley Stadium. Wembley Arena, sorry. So Lonnie turns up at the rehearsal, and I'm there, and he starts playing this song. And I'm thinking, why are we playing this song? It's a fabulous song. I'm thinking, why are we playing, Lonnie, why are we playing Fall in Love? I'm never gonna fall in love, because Lonnie wrote it. That's why we played it. And then he starts playing the Rock Island line. The Rock Island line is married to grow. And I'm watching. I'm not really playing. We're part of it. And I haven't played a note. And when we stopped playing the song, it finished, Lonnie looked at Van and he said to Van, is he going to play? And I looked at Van and I said, no, I'm not. And I'm not going to play because I think he'd had one heart attack by that time. He had everything. He was the complete package. He did not need a wheedling, noodling little guitarist in the background trying to get in the way of what was the perfect machine for that song and nothing else. So I didn't play. And then we played Wembley, and I think he came up in Scotland as well. Yeah, it was great to work with him, and I did write him a letter. I don't think it meant anything to him. I found his address in Spain, and I just wanted to tell him that I thought he'd not lost anything. He had everything. And I've got loads of DVDs of Lonnie from his TV shows and early on. He never missed a beat. He was phenomenal.
How did you come to work with Stevie Nicks?
Glenn, through my life, the one thread that'll always go back to the big root is Glyn Johns. So I spent maybe 3/4 of a year back and forth working on the Stevie Nicks album, which in the end, they didn't use what Glyn had done. They used bits of what I played on, and she gave it to somebody else. So there was Stevie Nicks, there was Linda Ronstadt. I did one album with Linda and then one album with Linda Ronstadt and Emmylou. And that's all with Glyn too. And then I'd finished the one album with Linda and she said, I'm in the studio on Monday. Will you stay around and play on this track? And I went, yeah, all right then. And I'm in the booth on the Monday. I'm ready to strum my acoustic guitar. And I'm thinking what the song is, Please Remember Me. And it's with Aaron Neville. So I haven't seen Aaron Neville, but I'm in the booth, and then he starts singing, and I'm getting Linda Ronstadt and Aaron Neville. And that was a big moment too. Worked with a lot of women, Helen Watson, Charlie Dore. That was another album I did with Glyn that never got used as well. It was an interesting time. That's what I got to say.
So let's get up to date then, and your new album, Invisible Bluesman.
Yeah.
So we have Malcolm Mills, your boss at the record company, to thank for this, because it was his suggestion that you do a blues album, a proper blues album.
Yes, it never occurred to me. I've been doing stuff for a long time, ever since certainly From the Cradle with Eric, 1996. And there's one song on the Invisible Bluesman album. It's called Life is Good. I recorded that in 1997 or 98. Some of the other stuff, Lightning Boogie and Baby What You Want Me to Do, that was 98 because I did about 19 bits of music for the film. And those two tracks were going to be involved in that film. And Flang Dang was my last solo album. And I just went, yeah, I think I'm done. I think I've made my full stop. I played everything except the drums on that, bass playing, sang, produced everything. And I thought, yeah, I'm happy with that. And nothing much happened with it. And I thought, it's a lot of effort. I think what I'm going to do now, I'm not going to chase this thing anymore. I'm just going to play. I'm just going to play with the band, play live, because that's where my audience is. I don't connect too much with, and out like I did with Damien Corner or through my solo career. So we're basically chucking it up against the wall and it's falling down. And then Malcolm said, no, I don't think people know enough about what you do on the blues level. Being at, Riding with the King, B.B. King, Clarence Gatemouth Brown, Otis Rush, Jimmy Vaughan. It's a long list. And he looked at all the stuff. He said, we can put put these there, make a compilation. And I love it. And
it's amazing because it's beautifully crafted. It feels very real and it feels very authentic as well. And it just does beg the question, well, why has it taken so long to actually do this? Why had you never dipped into this before?
That's a very good. Certainly when it comes to songwriting, I always want to do the simple song. I want the Jimmy Reed. I want to be able to write that song. And with Got Me a Party, that's more kind of Hank Williams. That was what sort of influenced me on that one. And I wish I could write more like that. But the truth is, I start writing and it's simple. And then I think, oh, no, I'll put that chord in. And then I think, it's like Wide Eyed Leggers. Oh, no, I'll put that chord in. And then I'll have that. And all of a sudden, it all gets complicated. And it's all about the song and not about me as a player. And I grew into the playing bit when I stopped playing with other people. When I went on the road with my own band and had to play live that night in that town and the next night. And I learned a lot through doing that, as opposed to being the cog in the wheel, which I was certainly with Roger and with Eric too. I had parts to play and I was, I'm not Eric Clapton, so you do that bit and it's not a competition with Eric. Eric just wants you to be the best you can be. But my job was not to get in the way. But when I went out solo, from that moment on, started playing Bright Lights Big City, which is on there, and Mystery Train, that from 2007, at a live gig. And I heard that the other day, that Mystery Train, I thought, well, that boy can play.
Your relationship with the blues, 71, you were living in London, you said, I went out, I picked up some Robert Johnson albums and I thought they all sounded the same.
Oh, yeah.
But it all changed in 94 on tour with Eric Clapton when he put Jimmy Rogers' Chicago Bound on, and that to you, I think you said, was the book of how it should be done and how it should sound.
Absolutely, and I'm still haunted by the fact that twice I dismissed Robert Johnson. Once very early on in Cardiff when there was Booker T and then there was Robert Johnson, and when I'm going Booker T. And then, in that 70s when we lived in Elstree, and I had that archetypal Robert Johnson album, put it on a Manani or something saying, right, let's move on. But we were doing a double header with Elton John touring America, Eric and Elton John. And we're going to the rehearsal one day, and I went in the car with Eric, and he put Chicago Bound on and went, listen to that. And then he gave me the cassette, of it. And I stuck with that, and it's the perfect example of how to structure a song, turnaround, playing, where everyone's playing. Every turnaround is perfect. The singing, everybody, and it's not like this, oh, can I do that again? No, these moments are all captured at one time in the air. So it's basically Muddy's Muddy's band, Fred Below, Otis Spann, Little Walter, Willie Dixon, Big Crawford, and a few others on that album as well. And Muddy plays as well on a couple of tracks with Jimmy Rogers, and usually they're done after the Muddy sessions. But I've lived with that album, and that was the first step. And from that moment on, I went in head first. And in fact, I'm still was doing a thing earlier on today, working on a Lonnie Johnson thing, because I'm someone who has to practice. I'm not. There are gifted people in all sorts, whether it's in sport or in music. In sport, I'd say McEnroe was a gifted player too, that didn't have to practice. And Eric's not. Eric's been playing all his life. I've not been playing all my life. I sang for a bit. And then when I did play, I didn't stretch out. I always just played the bits. And I was very good at playing the bits too, because I loved playing the bits. And I did. And I was treated really well by all the people that I worked with. Fabulous.
No surprise to see the Gin House Blues is on here. What does it feel like when you play that again? Does that bring back great memories?
Yeah, it does, in that... we got the record deal by chance, because the guy that came to see the band in Stretton-le-Carno, the guy from the record company, actually saw the other band that were on that night, and then went back to Ron King and said, "Tell those boys I've seen them, I like them, tell them to be in the studio Monday morning." And we turn up, and he all of a sudden, again, told the story many times, "Where's your trombone player? We don't have a trombone player." But we're all set up. And then you realise he's actually seen Trendsetters Unlimited with the other band. And he said, well, while you're here, let's do something. And we did Ginos. And Ginos was a song that I'd seen when I went to see Zoot Money and the Big Roll Band. And Paul, I loved that band. Andy Summers on guitar too. And Paul Williams, their bass player, it was his song in the set. Zoot would sing all, but Paul Williams would sing Ginos, but in the style of Nina Simone. But when we came to do it, we weren't quite up to the speed, so it had to be. And I love the new version. I loved it, which I'm still playing now. I mean, I played it in Madison Square Gardens. Eric, I got invited to the guitar festival, and the first night he asked me to play Spider Jiving, which was one of his all-time favourite tracks. And I went, all right. And then the next night he got me up and said, no, do Ginos. And I'm still doing it, and I love doing it. And I love, finally, I play the guitar, because obviously with Eric, if I played it, because he'd asked me to do it quite a few times, he would take the solo. I'm not taking the solo when Eric's on set. I'm not. Although he'd go on, Andy, go. And I go, no, I'd freeze. It's my guitar solo on the end. And I remember Eric heard it at one point. I don't know where we were, but it was on. And he looked at me and he went, "Is that you?" And I went, "Yeah, it is."
Another great thing about this album, by the way, is that there's obviously been a mature ear who has put this together because of the way it's been structured, because there's sufficient differentiation between each track so as you avoid that feeling of everything seamlessly blending together and it all just sounds like one blues song.
Yeah, for me, certainly with blues songwriting, that was beginning to be taken somewhere else, stopped after Peter Green. Man of the World, Rattlesnake Shake, Green Man Alicia, that is unbelievable. You look at that, Man of the World, Love That Burns, whatever they are, and now I find a lot of the blues thing is that typical Route 1 formula, and I'm not overly keen. I'm not overly keen on that. But every now and again you hear something, you go, yeah, that's different. Although I'm in that Route 1 formula with those songs, but for me, it's fresh. I mean, that's subjective, obviously. But yeah, because I really love playing them. I mean, there's a real joy on when things go wrong. There's a real joy when I do there's a song on there, Matchbox, which I do in the style of more Doc Watson than anything else. But there's a bit of Lightning in there too. And the Lightning Hopkins thing. I spent years listening to Lightning. Years and years. And I did that for a film soundtrack in 1998, which I don't think they used, but it didn't matter. It was a great process. I listen all the time. I'm still trying to learn because, unfortunately, with the guitar, the more you learn, you just realise, you just open another door and realise, oh no, we're nowhere. There's another motorway there. We're never going to get to this thing. And then you get to that thing, and then another door opens. You go, oh no, we're never going to get to that thing.
Your voice is in remarkably good condition. When many around, and you have to mention age. When many around are losing the power and the tone and the timbre of the voice, and they continue to go on, and some of it sounds painful to listen to. But what made your voice distinctive all those years ago still remains. So what are you doing to keep your voice in shape?
Well, firstly, I gave up smoking in 1991.
There you go, then.
That really was, on all levels, one of the best things I ever did, apart from getting married and having a son and all of that. And I took up exercise late. I was 27 when I decided to play tennis. I kind of got the bug. I'm watching Vilas and I'm watching Nastasi, and I'm watching all these characters, McEnroe and Connors, and that kind of dragged me in, to the era before, which would have been Stan Smith and Jan Kovic and it was all a bit stiff, but this was making it interesting. So 27, I started playing. 35, I started playing county, and then at 45 till I was 65, played veterans tennis for Wales. And I'm playing going to play paddleball now in about 2 hours. I played tennis this week. I'm off now touring, so that'll be done. But I run. When I was on the road with Eric, with Steve Gadd, we would run everywhere we were. I even did it when I was with Roger Waters in Mumbai. Not for very long, I might add. and not because of the heat, but because of running next door to abject poverty and all that. This is wrong. This is absolutely wrong. So that's become part of my life. Exercise. I think I'd start breaking things in the house if I didn't get out.
You are touring with this over the next few months, beginning very soon. And this album, the music on this album is going to fit the venues that you've chosen really well. Smaller, more intimate, the audience close. It will bring the album to life.
Yeah, I played 24 years of arenas, where you arrive at the arena, in the afternoon or whenever you're soundcheck, and it's like getting used to that noise that's in these places. And they're about events. They're about people living their lives through the music that's coming off, but it's their history that they're listening to. Oh, you see, remember where we were? And it's about money. It's about getting as many people as you can into one place, which I suppose is what you want to head for. But I played to about 300 people, and I'm lucky with that, or 400 people. And I control the dynamic in the places, the art centres or small theatres. You're loud, and when you're quiet, you can just do it to a drop of a pin. And I love it. I do. We're going to play the Half Moon in Putney, which is like a club I used to play when I was, in Amen Corner we grew up. And you go, I did it once in the 80s just because I wanted to. And the reviewer said, oh, how the mighty have stumbled. And I went, no, I want to do this. This is not missing. They don't get it. Here. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, it'd be great, I suppose. But if I got to the stage where I was playing an arena, it wouldn't be about the music then. The music it won't be about the music on the night. It'll be about what's gone before.
You did say that there is a chance that this, in terms of new material and albums, is going to be the last thing. It will depend on how it goes. But I was talking to Dion not that long ago, and he's got a decade or more on you, so there's still plenty of time left.
Oh yeah, it's. I think the amount of time when I start writing a song, it's all encompassing. If I was speaking to you now and I was actually working on a song, literally my head would be going around trying to make sense of it. If I'm walking, what moment I wake up, and for the amount of effort, plus the fact it's I paid to make my albums. It's not like a record company going to pay me to make an album. They'll give me an amount of money which won't be enough to finish the album. So maybe 2/3 of the albums I've done are paid for. Generally, they don't make the money back. But this one, and maybe the next, the Invisible Gospel Man, the Invisible Skiffle Man, the Invisible Surf Man. Oh no, I'm going to keep on playing. I've decided now it's time to play because I love playing, and I'm not fighting. I'm not fighting trying to get played on the radio because I've lost. I've been knocked out. Keeping in mind, I've had my 15 minutes at least 3 times. So I'll take what I got, and I like what I got.
When you look back on this extraordinary life that you've lived, what's given you the most pleasure, and do you have any specific regret?
No, well, I have a regret. I should have enjoyed it more. I shouldn't have had those moments of, I'm going to get fired. I know I'm going to get fired. Keeping in mind the people I did. Every time, I never realised I could have, this other voice should have said, for God's sake, just get on with it. Get on with it, you're all right. No, I'm going to get fired. And I'm not looking back yet.
And lastly, is there anybody left on the planet that you haven't collaborated with that you still think, yeah, I'd really like to work with them?
There is only one, and I'm serious. The list, even for Ry Cooder, I was on the same stage as Ry on a concert in Santa Monica. So yeah, I did get to play with him, even though he was on the other side of the stage. Hank Marvin, there you go. It was an amazing effect that man had. And maybe young people today, when they go, I go on the web, and the standard of guitar playing now is phenomenal. But so they judge and say, look at him, he's 14, he's unbelievable. Yeah, but he's 14 now with DVDs and instructionals, this and whatever. When Hank was around, that was literally the first step in, after Burt Wheaton or whatever, but that's the first time you went, oh, what's going on? What's going on? And I did see him I was on the Strat, the 50th anniversary gig at Wembley, and Hank was on. And I was in the audience on the sound check, and he struck up Wonderful Land, and you're going, oh. It's amazing what music can do to you. It's like a vehicle. The moment it starts, you're in there, and you're transported beyond the speed of light to a moment in time where something, usually it's something really lovely, and it can bring a smell, it can bring a thought, it can bring love. Music's a fabulous thing. Thank you. My word. Lovely.